I would like to share with you some of the thoughts that I've had recently as I've been trying to put our politics in a perspective and try and understand these times that we're in. As Senator Cornyn says, 2008 was a year of change, well, you know, the American people may be saying, that sort of change. In any case, it is a difficult time, and a time, I think, of political flux, and it's important to understand that. And I think if you look back over the last 25 years in American politics, we have alternating periods of what I call trench warfare politics and open field politics. Trench warfare politics, when the two alignments between the parties stay pretty much the same. Open field politics, when there's a lot of flux and movement and change and so forth. 1983 to 91, the Reagan era, if you will, the Reagan recovery till the fall of communism and so forth. That was a period, I think, of trench warfare politics. The Republicans tended to win the presidential races, Democrats tended to win the congressional elections. There was a pretty much static political preference. The first George Bush won what some people call the third Reagan term. Then in 1991 to 1995, we had lots of highly unusual things happen. Period of open field politics. The fall of communism removed the Cold War. We had issues of crime and welfare dependency helping conservatives, economic uncertainty helping liberals, and we saw the incumbent president percentage in the electorate drop by 16%. We saw a 46-year-old governor of Arkansas with an interesting personal life come from nowhere to win the presidency. We had independents leading in the polls, Ross Perot and Colin Powell. And I think it was particularly notable in the case of Ross Perot, because one of the things that has me always most concerned about my country is that in 1992, 19% of my fellow citizens voted for a candidate who was obviously clinically insane. There we are. So that, you know, the Democrat, we were told at the beginning of the period the Republicans have a lock on the presidency, the Democrats have a lock on Congress. The Democrats promptly won the presidency, the Republicans promptly won Congress. A lot of things shifted. Then 95 to 05, we had another period of trench warfare politics. That was the time when people were split primarily along cultural issues, according to deep moral beliefs, and we didn't see much change, and we were sort of a 49% nation for a while. With very, very closely divided in both presidential and congressional elections. And that basically changed 2005, 2006. Katrina, Iraq, perceived incompetence on the part of our president, the bridge to nowhere, the Mark Foley scandal, the problems with the Republican majority in Congress. That really kind of snapped the bond of faith between some Republican voters or people who had been reliable Republican voters. And so we saw the Democrats winning a majority in 2006. We saw them winning the presidency in 2008 and increasing majorities in the Congress. And we've got some Democrats now claiming that, well, we're going to see an era of Democratic majorities forever and ever. I can remember when some of us back 4 years ago were saying, well, is it possible we might see years of Republican majorities forever and ever? That did not turn out to be the case, to say the least. And I think that we're in such a period of change that many different outcomes are possible. We really saw that during the 2008 presidential race. I mean, how many here in this room thought Barack Obama was going to beat Hillary Clinton, right? We saw a lot of other things change during the campaign. We saw opinion change on major issues. A fascinating study in public opinion. $2.50, $3, $3.50 gas doesn't change public opinion on drilling for oil. $4 gas changes. So instead of people are suddenly, majorities are in favor of drilling offshore, majorities are in favor of drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and you basically got the public attitude changes from we must preserve the pristine environment to nuke the caribou. And we saw opinion change on Iraq. At the beginning of calendar year '08, it was a big negative for Republicans. Basically, people started to appreciate, despite the efforts of mainstream media, the success of the surge, and it turned out to be a less salient issue, but also one that was perhaps mildly favorable to Republicans. So despite the president's unpopularity, changes in party identification that helped the Democrats, we actually had a period when John McCain and Sarah Palin were ahead the first 2 weeks in September. Whether or not that would have lasted, no one knows for sure. The financial crisis came along, and basically that and the candidates' apparent responses to that, I think, determined the election at the presidential level. But I think that before that period, you actually had a period where McCain was ahead. So I think a lot of results, the 2008 numbers are not etched in stone. And then we have had the additional events that are coming along that provide opportunities, not just to win electoral victories, but to make, in the course of winning those electoral victories or legislative victories, to make arguments that can prove persuasive for voters in a period when people are facing new issues, they are in unfamiliar territory, they're not sure what to think. Opinion tends to be fluid, I think, in those circumstances. And the leverage that you can exert by, at the critical point, making arguments and making your case is greater potentially than it usually is. Let me just point out a couple of things about the Obama coalition that suggest to me certain strengths of the Obama coalition as it voted on November 4th, but also potential weaknesses. Number one, it's a top and bottom coalition. There exists, if you look at the exit poll, there exists a group of people at the top of the high end of the education spectrum and the income spectrum and the low end of the age spectrum. There exists a bunch of people who voted for Obama and Republicans for Congress. That suggests to me that there is a vote on the sort of upscale end of the socioeconomic spectrum that may be available to Republicans in 2010, that basically many of these votes weren't very available in the period of trench warfare politics when the major issue was cultural issues and so forth. 2010, I think, may be a different situation. And so you're starting to look at a state like Connecticut that Senator Cornyn identified. The other point I'd make about the Obama coalition young voters, and here I think Republicans have really got to figure some things out here, because young voters voted for Barack Obama by a 66-32 margin. By way of comparison, he carried voters 30 and over by only 50-49. The fact is, that's the biggest difference in age groups that we've seen since exit polling coming out, and it's obviously not good news for the future. John McCain carried young voters in 9 states with 57 electoral votes. That's not a future the Republican Party should want to have. I think that Republicans have got to think about some of those young voters and think about what will appeal to them. And I think that we've got that there is, in particular, with respect to young voters, a tension, huge tension between the Obama's 21st century kind of campaign and the mid-20th century welfare state proposals that are the Obama program, the Obama platform, the Obama budget. I mean, the Obama campaign was terrific. I mean, they, hooked up people by, internet. You could volunteer. You had My Obama. They had kept metrics, keeping track of people, but it was also decentralized and so forth. It was a terrific 21st century organization.